Hi guys, it's Allie, here's Ginny, and today we are going to be doing another writing update. I'm not sure how long it's been exactly since I made one of these writing update videos, but it has been a while, and so I figured we were due for one, so let's just get right into it. After failing Camp Nano this summer, I was definitely feeling a little bit of the loss of motivation that I was kind of expecting to have, but I hadn't really anticipated that it would be very detrimental to my overall work ability, and in some ways that was true. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on outside of writing at the time. Over the past few weeks I've gotten engaged, we've started preparing for the wedding and coming up with dates and venues and all of that stuff. There was a lot of other things to take care of that didn't involve writing, but I still wish that I'd been able to get more done. Unfortunately, side by side with all of these life changes that have been going on, I have been experiencing something that I tend to do a lot, which is fixating on a particular topic and just like falling down the rabbit hole of wanting to learn more about that thing, and usually that leads to more plot bunnies or to ideas that are different, sometimes entirely separate from my work in progress. As many of you guys will know if you've seen any of my writing updates in the past, or if you've seen my work in progress tag video that I did forever ago, you'll know that I am currently writing a young adult fantasy novel that is something completely of my own imagination. Like, there's nothing to base it off of. This new fixation that I have is history in general and historical fiction as a method of getting closer to history and experiencing and living history through the eyes of characters. And lately, YouTube has been suggesting to me a bunch of documentaries and really interesting interviews and videos about different time periods, and I have just gone down the rabbit hole. It started out with watching some Victorian life documentaries. That then led to a bunch of other documentaries about different time periods and how technologies and how day-to-day life shifted throughout the years, especially in England, but I watched quite a few in America as well, which initially made me think back to a previous idea that I'd already had. I've mentioned in a video before at some point that I do have a historical romantic fiction, kind of like a new adult, not quite YA, but not quite adult idea in the works, but it had very little to it as of right now. It was very much just an idea. After watching these documentaries, some things started falling into place, and so I typed those out. That helped me to add a bunch of stuff into that story. But in watching all of these documentaries, it actually led me to a really interesting video, which I will leave linked either in an info card or down below or both, about the Titanic. This video game that has been in development for quite a few years now, I believe, has basically computer generated what the sinking of the Titanic looked like, and so they take you through the whole event and also include when each lifeboat was launching and how many people were in each and what telegrams were being sent out at what time, and that was something that was really interesting to me and took me down this whole rabbit hole of all of these other events that were happening in the early 1900s, the very early 1900s, leading up to and during World War I. All of these other ideas started hatching in my brain that then went into their own tabs on my Scrivener documents, and so as of right now, I have that original idea that takes place in Victorian times, and then another book that is likely going to have a companion novel that takes place in a similar time period, probably like late Victorian, and then I have an additional at least 3 or 4 books that I'm planning on writing that will take place in the early 1910s, including one of them which hopefully I can find some way to include the sinking of the RMS Titanic in that. We'll see. But that is what I've been dealing with over the past couple weeks, because all of these different stories have been popping into my head as a result of watching all of these documentaries. And when my other opportunity for writing is a fantasy where I am coming up with every aspect of that world, it can kind of feel more relaxing to research than it does to create, because it doesn't take as much brain power. I mean, obviously it does, but it doesn't feel like it's as hard of work for me, because a lot of times coming up with something also requires extensive research. Every single time that I go to write my fantasy YA, I am drawn back to the historical element because it's so much easier to just sit still and look something up and go through all of that stuff than it is to deal with the middle of my book, which is the hardest part of a book to write, and having that be a fantasy where at every turn I'm like, oh crap, I missed that element of the world building, I need to go back and fix that, and then does not change something that happened in the first quarter of the book, and then oh crap, I need to go do this and that, and all of that is so fun. It's just when you're competing between something that is generally more passive in terms of how much creative space it's taking up in your brain, and something that is entirely creative, it's sometimes easy to fall back on the new shiny research that you don't have to do a lot of work for than it is to work on something that you have to problem solve for. At the end of the day, I love all of the ideas that I've had, and that does not mean that I'm no longer paying attention to my main work in progress. I definitely am. In fact, I've written, I think, 2,000 words today, but I am definitely struggling to avoid the plot bunnies, which is funny because I just recently made a video about how to avoid plot bunnies or get over plot bunnies when they occur. It's still a struggle. Just because you have the tools to do things doesn't mean that it is going to be easy to utilize those tools. That's kind of where I'm at. Writing-wise, I'm still working and chugging along on my work in progress. The historical ones at the moment feel more kind of like passion projects, but that's also because they're new and shiny, and that's the way that it goes. I'm so familiar with this fantasy book by now, which I've been working on, well, I had the idea for in high school, so at least 5 years ago, and having all of the work to put in for this one, and then having just the idea phase to work on for these new 4 or 5 ideas, it's hard to make the right decision there, but the right decision is to let yourself come up with the ideas, then turn to the things you gotta do and get it done. I'm working real hard, but I hope that you guys are doing well in your writing pursuits. I hope no one is disheartened by the fact that this is another kind of low point on the writing process for me. I feel like it's just as important to share these elements of the writing process with you as it is to share the positive writing elements. So that is going to be it for me today, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, give it a like, and if you like my content, do subscribe. I make videos every Friday. Be sure to leave comments and questions for me in the comment section below or on any of my social media. I do have my 1-year anniversary on YouTube coming up in July, and so I want to do a Q&A video for my 1 year if at all possible. So please give me some questions. I have 2, I think, at the moment, so please give me some questions, and I will see you guys in the next video.